Hello, Alexa and track group participants. So this is Megan and Andrew.
Hello.
With a track update from our Parksville track. So Alexa came up with Elsie in the summer, and we were still kind of under construction. So this track, we've lived here now since the beginning of 2023. So it's been 2 years in progress. So here's a little track update, and we'll give you a track tour. All right, so here we are standing at our barn. So this used to be a 2-stall barn with a feed room, and Andrew took down all the walls, added a 3rd door, and made it into communal living here. So this way nobody can get trapped in the shelter because we do have multiple horses living on the track together. So right now we have 4 full-size horses sharing the track. So we've got 3 stalls and the equivalent of 3-stall lean-to out the back here. One thing that we did that we would recommend everybody does is put in a temporary paddock separate from your track that shares a fence line, so that if anybody is sick, hurt, you have new horses coming in, anybody needs to be separated for any reason, you have a permanent structure that you can use. So I think that was one of our smart things that we did at the beginning. One of the big changes we made is when we first surfaced the paddock, we did the whole paddock in pea gravel, thinking that that would be really great for their feet. Next to the barn, we have their water. So the idea is that they would come walk across the pea gravel at least, 5-10 times a day to get water. But we did find with some of our more sensitive horses, they didn't love the pea gravel at times. So we didn't want to make it uncomfortable for them. So when we surfaced the track, we actually surfaced most of the paddock as well. So we left a pea gravel section over there for them to still lay in and roll in because they seem to really like it. But the more sensitive horses don't have to go on it if they don't want to. So to give you an idea of your bearing, so there's our barn, that's their water. This paddock is fenced. And then from here you can kind of see the beginning of our track. So we are very lucky that we had some great fencing here already, and we've just added to it. So the whole perimeter of our track is horse fence, wrapped horse fence. So it's super, super safe. We've been really happy with that. It is a 2x4, so it is way too small for a horse to get their foot stuck. So if somebody does kick or rolls into the fence, they damage it, and it kills Andrew on the inside when he sees the fences not look so great, but the horses survive, so that's what is important.
The only thing we might do at some point is put some strands of electric fence along the inside, just because they do tend to rub up against it and it will stretch the wire.
Totally. Yeah, very good point. We also have 2 gates in behind Andrew here going into the paddock, which means we can lock the horses in the paddock or out of the paddock at any time. We store our hay outside the barn, so when Andrew has to drive in with the tractor with a round bale, he can do that and not have horses running out the gate at the same time. So that's been a great thing as well. We converted this upper field to our first track. So the perimeter fence was already here. So what we did is we made the interior fencing. So we set up 2 80-foot by 120-foot riding arena sizes. So the hope is at some point to get this one finished off as an all-season riding arena, and that one will stay grass and will have obstacles in it like working equitation or mountain trail. And so what that has done is that's given us a really even center to our track. But the outside of the track varies from, do you remember, is it 30, it's like 35 feet at the widest, I think. And then,
yeah, that's pretty close.
And then some spots are about 20, 25, and then the rest is 15. Yeah?
Yeah, 15 is the narrowest.
Yeah. So one of Andrew's biggest sore points is that we bought 5 acres of grass and none of our horses can eat grass. So we have this beautiful property with a high water table that grows grass all year. We have to mow it all year. So Andrew's done a great job of adding insulators, extended insulators to the interior fence to keep them off of the grass. And in certain areas, he will actually spray vinegar around the fence line to stop them from eating it. So this property is so wet. You can see our big pond right there, and we've got a swale at the back. So in surfacing the track since our last walk through with Alexa, we had Rob from Parksville Heavy Equipment, and we can't say enough good things about him. So he graded the track. I think it's 7 inches. It's a very flat property, 7 inches higher at that end. He also sloped the track slightly to the inside. So we've actually got drainage running along the long sides of the track from the top across here, underneath, and then draining out into our swale. So this property is so wet, and we still have standing water on lots of spots. But as you can see, our track is dry. So this is our swale that collects water. Unfortunately, it's not perfect, as our swale is a little bit lower than our neighbors, I think. Theirs runs a bit uphill, so it doesn't drain as well as we would like. But we'll take a little detour on our track tour to show you the beginning of our back track. So this is another field. I think this one's bigger than that one. But there's a lot of grass. So we are currently about a third of the way done in making a grass-free area for the horses back here. To give you an idea of the kind of earth that we're dealing with and why surfacing was so important. So it's been hot and sunny for days, and you can see how wet and slick and deep the mud is here. So right now we're taking advantage of the wet weather and letting the horses trash it back here, so that we will have another grass-free track hopefully at some point. And this runs around the perimeter of this field as well, in between that tree line and the back fence. And then there's a great area over here with lots of tree cover. So we're excited to hopefully get the horses access to that this summer, and then they'd have lots of shade. But right now, most of the time that is closed off, and they're just on the surfaced upper track. So again, to get our bearings, that's the barn we just came from. We have our magic hay hut, which has probably been one of the best investments so far. We are very spoiled by our hay dealer, Diana. She takes excellent care of us, and she sells us low sugar round bales, local hay. And she also sells these hay huts, and these have been just amazing. So we double net a bale, because they do a lot of standing at the hay hut. And Andrew has very well organized what we lovingly call the mud grid island around the hay hut. So before we surfaced the track, this would have been a mud pit. And now that the track is surfaced, we still use the mud grid island because it stops them from rutting out. So it really, really helps cut down on them damaging the footing around here. So we'll walk around this side of the track as well and show you the full meal deal, and then our little mini track we have our miniature horses on. And while we do that, I think Andrew might understand a little bit better the process that Rob did. So he graded.
Yeah, he graded to an angle, or so for natural drainage, and then he put 6 to 7 inches of 3/4 crush.
Yeah.
Is the material that we put on top, and then graded that, and we roll it and packed it, and now we continue to harrow it on quite a regular basis. And it works great. It's because the property is wet. When we do get rain, we do still get standing water, and the standing water will stay for as long as it's raining.
Yeah.
But then within a day or so of the rain stop,
track's dry again.
It's dry again.
Yeah.
And we can get on and harrow it again, level it, and resurface it. So
perfect.
It's worked out very well.
Yeah, and this material that we put on top of the what do you call it? 3/4
Crush.
crush. So this is actually like a riding ring material. So it's a mix of sand, pea gravel, and cart path,
I think so.
which some people call screenings, I guess. So there's no dirt in it. We'll try and find an old aerial shot. This side of the track used to be underwater from, I don't know, September until
Full winter, pretty much.
May.
Yeah.
And if you look, not only is it dry as a bone, but we're staying on top of it. So it's quite good, despite the fact that there is a lot of material and the horses can churn it up as they're running around. It just keeps getting better over time. So every time Andrew harrows it and rolls it and it gets rained on, it just keeps getting better and better.
It's packed, but the surface is still good.
Stays soft, yeah.
So it's not a hard surface ever.
And we've got our second, you can see our second drain underground running along this fence line. And then, yeah, this is actually a little mini track we put in for these two little munchkins. And they share this track alternating with one of our horses that does not fit in the track group. So they've got it set up so that they've got a shelter on one end. We've got lots of spots for hay nets along the top. We actually use the round pen. It's not really a track, it's just a long skinny paddock, but we use the round pen to narrow it, and it goes the full length of the track here. So their water and stuff is up at the end with the barn. And then they're lucky because they've got some extra tree shelter up here as well, which they love. And this is kind of where our horses like to nap.
See one fence down there too.
Yeah, you can see where they've rubbed and damaged the fence, but nobody's ever gotten hurt or caught.
Right.
And most of this, and this will attest why this fencing is so good, most of this is from her kicking.
Yeah.
So we trust this fence entirely to keep an aggressive horse separate from the other herd. So I'd say the biggest differences since our first track tour with Alexa was we've surfaced. That's been a big thing. We're opening up the back track. And then interestingly enough, it was something that was kind of coming anyway, but it was in the webinar with Abbott's View track system with Alexa's whole horse apprenticeship program that I think we got the support we needed to just take Echo off the track. So this big, beautiful black horse that's standing back there is exactly the horse that you think would benefit from a track. She has dealt with laminitis most of her life. She has a tendency to be overweight. She doesn't do a lot, so you think being in a herd and moving would be great. But after 18 months of trying to integrate our two herds of horses, because Andrew and I are a blended family, Echo was still acting quite aggressively, and not normally, right? Like biting, chasing, not just kind of typical dominant stuff, but she was really committing to it. And we really struggled with the idea of taking her off the track because she's exactly the horse that you think would be good to have on the track. But once we did, everybody felt better, didn't they? So it was a tough decision for us to make, but if that helps anybody else make a similar decision, Echo is happier on her own. She eats less on her own. She's nicer for us to be around on her own. And the whole track group is happier, aren't they? So all of the horses were actually overeating when Echo was on the track as well, because she was adding stress and resource guarding to food. So yeah, so this is our update from beautiful Parksville. And yeah, we're happy to take any questions if anybody has any about the experience, if there's things that we would do differently, what we did once that we maybe had to do a second time because we didn't do it right, that sort of thing. So yeah, thanks for coming.